It is now my honor to introduce the moderator of the event, the Honorable Scott Brook, Mayor of Coral Springs.
Thank you very much, Ron. I appreciate that. It's great to be here with everybody. Can you hear me okay? Great. And congratulations, Commissioner Carter, on winning the Hometown Heroes Award. Well, it's great to be with you. I can't wait to be with you all live next month. I'd like you all to please welcome our esteemed panel for a legislative update today. We've got Senator Lauren Brook. Welcome, Lauren. Thank you for all the hard work you do for our community. We've got State Representative Dan Daley. Woo! Thank you, Dan, for everything you do for all of us. You're awesome. We also have with us State Representative Christine Hunschofsky, who is everywhere all the time. And you also do great work for all of us, Christine. And last and not least, the almost the youngest looking former mayor in the county, almost. We've got Vice Mayor Michael Udine. Welcome, Michael. So at this point in time, I will give each panelist 2 minutes to discuss their takeaways from their legislative session, this past session.
I just interrupt to ask everybody to please mute themselves if you are not speaking, because some people are getting static. Thank you.
So I believe we're starting with Senator Lauren Brook.
Morning, everybody. How are you? It's wonderful to start the day with some of my favorite people. And I apologize. I wish I could mute myself because I'm sure you can hear some background. We're getting ready to go to camp. But first, I want to thank you all for having us here. Say an extra congratulations to one of my favorite women, Joy Carter. I have the pleasure of spending time with your daughter, and so I love when I get to see you. And I'm so excited to be here. I have the pleasure and honor of working with some truly incredible people that represent Coral Springs and Tallahassee. Representative Hunschofsky works harder than any other elected official. You're not kidding when you say she is everywhere. She is. She's hardworking, and while this was her first session, she did some incredible work. I was able to work with her on a couple of pieces of her legislative measures that I'm sure she's going to talk about, because one is a bike bill that she worked very hard on that I know is important to Coral Springs. Representative Daley, I know also has been doing a lot of incredible work. And I know that he worked on a really important local bill that I know that he's going to talk about, because he has been working on that for many years, since our late, great, incredible friend, Representative Jacobs was working on. That's how long, and he got it across the finish line this year. And again, when I get to see Vice Mayor Udine, it's a good day. But you know, it was a tough legislative session. A lot of really bad bills. While our state has been, and Floridians are struggling through a global pandemic, you know, Tallahassee decided that, you know, we didn't need to work on some of the unemployment issues that we were having, or some of the other issues that we were facing. They were focusing on anti-riot bills, banning trans kids from participating in sports. These are some of the things that they wanted to spend their time on. And while I'm sure that some of my colleagues will talk a little bit about some of those really bad bills, because some of them came from the House, I want to talk about some of the positives, because I think Tuesday is a good day to start with some positivity, because I think we did do some really great stuff. One of them I touched upon, one of our colleagues and somebody that I know is important to the Coral Springs the Coral Springs and Coconut Creek community, and that was Kristen Jacobs. And so we had the opportunity, Representative Hunschofsky and I, to designate the Kristen Jacobs Coral Reef Conservation Area in her honor, which was really special and truly important. It was the first bill that passed off of the House floor, I believe. And so that is a true honor and testament to who she was and what she has done for our community. We did do another really great bill that we have been working on for many years, the banning of seclusion and restraint in special education classrooms throughout the state of Florida. This is a measure that I've been working on for many years. And we finally got that across the finish line. Again, near and dear to our hearts, we implemented, Representative Hunschofsky and I, the recommendation of the MSD report to create mental health commissions, and work to make sure that our community and our children get the resources that they need. Again, we work to fix some of the loopholes related to NICA, the Neurological Birth-Related Neurological Injury Trust Fund. Some great reporting from the Miami Herald in our local communities, making sure that children and families are getting the resources that they need. And finally, one of two more pieces to go back to MSD. Representative Hunschofsky and I also had the ability to work on with Representative Daley as well, the MSD Memorial Day. So every year we honor the lives of those that we lost in our community. And finally, 2 weeks before session started, a friend of mine texted me and said, hey, our pediatrician was just arrested on child pornography charges. My kid's pediatrician. I petitioned the state to have his license temporarily suspended, only to find out that there was no mechanism to do so. The Surgeon General ignored our calls to have that happen. And so we passed a bill that put a temporary hold on licenses when it comes to sexually assaulting children and the elderly. Again, in the Coral Springs community, a gastroenterologist, as you all know, was also arrested. And so those are some of the good things. I know we touched a little bit on some of the bad things, but I know I only had 2 minutes and I passed that time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Senator. Thanks for your hard work. You're doing a great job, Lauren. Thank you so much. Now we'll hear from State Representative Dan Daley. Good morning, Dan.
Well, good morning, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. As every time Cindy Breath invites me to a chamber event, I get up extra early and have 2 more cups of coffee just so I can be here on time, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with you all. It's good to see you all. It's good to see my colleagues, Senator Brook and Representative Hunschofsky, of course. We did it. We survived the what was probably the strangest and one of the most challenging legislative sessions certainly I've ever seen. When you add in my time with Ari Porth, this was my 6th session, and it was definitely something to behold. Commissioner Carter and Vice Mayor Simmons, Vice Mayor Udine, Mayor Tooley. I like the sound of that, by the way, Becky. It's good to be with you all as well. Thank you for all that you've done at the local level, and for anybody I may have missed, good to see you all. And Coral Springs commissioners and mayor, please plug your ears, because you're going to get pretty much a longer version of this update tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to seeing you all. I'll be brief. Look, Senator Brook hit the nail on the head. This was a very challenging session, and there was a lot of, candidly, I think, bad policy. I think we all agree there was a lot of challenging policy that was kind of shoved through this process where the public really had limited to no input. And lo and behold, the day session ended, they announced that the Capitol would reopen to the public the following Monday. So a lot of what went down in Tallahassee was done with very little to no public input and participation. You didn't have that same vibe. You didn't have that same energy. You didn't have that same pressure in the case of the problematic legislation that you would normally have that kind of keeps some folks in Tallahassee a little bit more honest. But I, like Senator Brook, I'll go ahead and share a couple of our accomplishments this session. I was very fortunate. I had 4 local bills, which the senator mentioned that I'll dive into here in a second. And I could not have done it without Rep. Hunschofsky, Senator Brook, and so many others in the delegation who year after year supported this legislation. Well, heck, I'll dive right into it. So if you live in the North Springs Improvement District, the Coral Springs Improvement District, the Pine Tree Improvement District, or Sunshine Water Control District, those districts are going to have the opportunity to get a little bit more transparent and a little bit more accountable. And as the senator mentioned, our dear friend, the late Representative Kristen Jacobs, originally filed the bills years ago in partnership with me in the city of Coral Springs to try and bring those boards, their elections, to popular elections. Just like I'm elected, the senator's elected, many of your local elected officials are elected, where it's 1 vote per person. And you have this system in Florida where these 4 districts were continuing to operate based on proxy vote of largest landowner. So if you happen to own a large chunk of land, you got more votes than everybody else. Meanwhile, you were still being impacted by any rate increases or failures in service and everything else. So I won't go too far into the weeds, but just know that you're going to have the opportunity, if you live in one of those districts, one or more of those districts, to vote to say, yes, we want this board to go to a popular election where every single person gets a say and gets a vote. And so that of course is pending the governor's signature. So I don't want to jinx it. He hasn't been kind to me lately, unfortunately, at least budget wise. But hopefully those will all get across the finish line and we'll be good to go, and increasing transparency and accountability there at those local districts. I'm also pleased to say that I was able to get 4 general bills of statewide impact across the finish line. And basically that was through the amendment process and working with folks like Senator Brook and Representative Hunschofsky. I'll touch on those briefly. So the first of those, and I think most of what I try to focus on, like Rep. Hunschofsky and Senator Brook and others, is preventing something like Douglas from happening again. And that's not just from the reasonable gun reform angle, that's all angles, right? So school hardening, mental health, anything that we can do to kind of chip away at what went wrong on February 14th. And so the Parents Need to Know Act was in partnership with the parents, with many of the parents, including Tony Montalto and April Shentrip. And basically what it did, the language that we were able to incorporate into the school safety bill says that within a reasonable period of time, which we put at about 24 to 48 hours, a school district has to notify parents, teachers, and staff when there's been an incident or a threatened incident on campus. Because I think a lot of what you've seen, and I think Senator Brook can attest to this, being a member of the MSD Commission, a lot of what you saw over those years were incidents and bullying accounts and threats and all sorts of stuff going on, and it never really made its way. All that information never really made its way out and into the sunlight. And so this bill or this language that's incorporated in the school safety bill will help do that. So we believe that that's a step in the right direction. Another piece of legislation is the swim safety bill. Folks, there is water everywhere, and you would be amazed. Even the number of people on this call, let's say out of the 36 people, I promise you there is at least one, and you don't have to identify yourself, it's okay, that may not know how to swim. And if you don't believe me, when I was presenting this bill in committee, I think Rep. Hunschofsky was on this committee, 1 or 2 of my colleagues on the dais in the committee admitted, hey, I actually never learned to swim. And I have, either young children or young nieces and nephews or something to that effect. And this bill actually will go ahead and look, I guess, let me take a step back. Dealing in Tallahassee is most times the art of the possible, right? Would I love a bill that mandates every child in this state before they enroll in school have some form of swim safety education? Yeah, I support that. I think most people actually would, but this legislature would likely not see any kind of statewide mandate pass through its chambers unless it's a mandate that the majority wanted, right? The art of the possible. So we went ahead and put the bill together where if a parent goes in to enroll that student in classes, they ask that parent, hey, does your child know how to swim? And if the answer is no, they're required to provide documentation that basically just explains the importance of getting that swim safety education. It's the #1 killer of children, 1 to 4 in Florida, right? Things like that to really impress that point on that parent or guardian. And then at the bottom, they're required to list 5 low or no cost regionally based swim providers. So there's no argument against it, right? You can go and get that swim lesson to teach that child how to swim and be safer. And maybe that parent doesn't know how to swim. Maybe while they're taking their child for their lessons, they decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and try it too, right? And it helps everybody kind of get swim certified. And the last one that I'll touch on very briefly is one that I think you may find interesting, either from your business perspective or if you have college-age students, and that is the establishment of the student internship tax credit program in Florida. Worked with State Senator Chevron Jones. And what this basically does is it gives kids that may not otherwise have the opportunity to afford an unpaid internship, the opportunity to take an internship, for it to be paid, and for the business to get a benefit for hiring and paying their interns. So if you hire and pay your interns, you're eligible for a tax credit. It is capped per intern and per overall amount, but you can get a state income tax credit for hiring and paying your interns. And I almost forgot, there's one other one that I'm super excited about that I had the pleasure of working with the awesome Marie Woodson, who represents the Hollywood area. We ran a high school bill contest, and high school students came up with the idea of putting a crisis intervention hotline or text line on the back of student IDs. So that will now be as part of the school safety package law in Florida, that if a school district issues a student ID, the back of it has to have a crisis intervention hotline or text line. And the whole crux of that concept is to give them who maybe they're being bullied, maybe they're being physically or mentally abused, give them an avenue to reach out and get help and maybe not do some other things that wouldn't be so healthy. So with that, I'll wrap it up and thank you very much to everybody for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Representative. That's a lot of great work, a lot of great collaboration. Thank you very much. Representative Christine Hunschofsky, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I hope everybody's had a lot of coffee because you're getting a lot of information today from quite a roller coaster ride of a legislative session. I'm going to start by mentioning that we passed, our only constitutional duty is to pass a balanced budget. And this was the largest balanced budget in the state of Florida history. And when we came into session, we were all concerned about cuts in the budget and especially where those cuts would be. We were very fortunate that the state of Florida received $10 billion from the federal government through the American Rescue Plan. And that really made a huge difference because about $6 billion of that was used in the current budget and the rest will be in reserves for next year's budget where we expect to see some challenges. And I just wanted to mention that because a lot of the good things that we are able to talk about in the budget are because of that money and the change of circumstances that happened during the legislative session. I am so happy that Senator Brook still says nice things about me because we worked together so much this session. For those of you who are not aware, you know, it's great to do work in the House side, but you need a partner in the Senate to get things across the finish line. And to just talk about what Representative Daley was mentioning about getting things across the finish line through the amendment process. It's not as easy as it looks. So I had 4 bills that I sponsored or was a co-prime sponsor that passed the House floor, but their Senate version didn't always get where they needed to go. So that's when, you know, the perseverance comes into action and the strategic work comes into action where we find other bills that we can amend these bills onto. So I had 6 bills get across the finish line this session. One, actually the one that Senator Brook mentioned, the renaming the coral reef after Kristen Jacobs has already been sent to the governor's desk, and I will be calling the governor's office today because we'd really like that to be signed. But out of the 6 bills that moved along, I think only one of them will actually have my name on it because most of them then, even if they pass the floor, I made sure they got amended into other bills. It's about finding a train. And I think that's really important to mention because, you know, I think sometimes when we talk about elected officials, it's all about attention. But when you're able to put your ego aside and you don't care whose name is on the final product, it's incredibly amazing to see the work you can get done. As a female Democrat from Broward, I was not expecting to get anything done. And I was very surprised at how much you can get done when you're willing to work with people. And really, it's all about the end product. And with that, I would just like to mention a couple of things that I did. And one that was a passion project of mine and was actually the last bill I introduced because I had been told it would go nowhere. Was House Bill 1447, which was the Commission on Mental Health and Substance Abuse. And this was a direct recommendation from the 3rd interim grand jury report of the MSD Commission, of the MSD grand jury. And the importance of this bill is that they were looking into school safety and then they stumbled across our mental health, and I'm going to use the term lightly, system in the state of Florida and how it's completely disconnected. There's very little coordination. And it's not the best it could be from efficiently delivering mental health and substance abuse services. So this bill passed the House floor. It would make a 19-member commission that would have to, and from people with real world experience, not people who theoretically have opinions of what the mental health system would look like. It would be people who've accessed the system themselves, who have family members, who are psychologists and all that, so that we can get really real world concrete recommendations. And they would be giving a report at the end of 2 years of how improvements could be made. And I hope to still be in the Florida legislature at that time. That is my plan, so that we can implement some of these improvements. Coming out of COVID, we've had, economic challenges, education challenges, but I think it has also brought to the forefront mental health challenges. And hoping that we can make a great difference in the state of Florida for all of the people of Florida. So that was one of my passion projects, in addition to obviously renaming the coral reef after Kristen Jacobs. One of the other bills was the bicycle and pedestrian safety bill that I also worked on with Senator Lauren Book. And that's adding pedestrian and bicycle safety questions to the test bank for the driver's license, as well as regulations on how to pass bicycles, so that we can hopefully live safely, coexist safely on the road, bicycle, pedestrian, and automobiles. Additionally, I had a hand in the police reform that came about, and one of them was mental illness training for police officers. It's important that often when we're when police are encountering a situation, that they have the training to know when somebody's in crisis, to be able to refer them to where they need to get referred. One bill that I would like to mention actually wasn't my bill. And the reason I'd like to mention it is because I think it's actually one of the best pieces of legislation that passed this session, and it's an early learning bill. And what it does is for pre-K, VPK, it really improves the standards for those people providing those services, and really make sure now parents will be obligated, if they put their child in VPK, that the children have to participate in screening and progress monitoring programs. And the importance of that is this is the foundation for our children. When we say, oh, by the time they got to high school or whatever, we really need to invest early on, because that is the foundation for future learning. If there are any sort of learning challenges like dyslexia, auditory processing, that those can really be screened and found early, so that the child can get the help they need in order to be successful in school. For those who here or who've had children who've struggled in school, it's very difficult when that's not caught early on and the child thinks something is wrong with them, when it's really that they haven't received the support and the services that they need. Additionally, there was a great investment this year in resilience, combating, resilience projects for combating flooding, and working on that. And another bill that I think is very important to the business community was the online sales tax bill that passed. All that, it's not a new tax, as is sometimes said by people. It was an existing tax that will now be enforced. And the money will go to unemployment insurance. And then after that, it will also go to reducing the commercial real estate rental sales tax. And I will keep it brief like that, because I know I'm sure there are a lot of questions, and I don't know how much coffee everybody's had, but thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all you do for the community. Everybody on here, I know how much these businesses aren't just businesses. You all are part of this community. You're part of keeping our community strong and thriving. And I just really want to say personally very much thank you for all you do.
That's a wonderful acknowledgement of our business community here. And there are a lot of great people in this chamber that are great leaders in our community. Representative, it was your first session. You did a great job. Thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts here in Coral Springs and Coconut Creek. Really, you're just a great job. Thank you so much. So we've got our Vice Mayor, Michael Udine, former Mayor of Parkland, dad of 3. Awesome guy. Mickey, what do you got for us?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. It's great to be with everyone and be on such an esteemed panel of great leaders who do so much, for our community and for the state and for the world in general. I'm going to be very brief. From a Broward County point of view, the last, few months, year basically has been about pandemic response. We have been the, primary point of service to push out, the pandemic response programs that have come, down through the state and through the federal government. That include, vaccination rollouts. Obviously, we've helped with food distribution at our parks, rent relief, business relief, those kind of programs that everybody knows about. I want to compliment the city of Coral Springs. I mean, they've been so great to work with, and they've done so much even on their own to support their residents in the Coral Springs community during this, whole pandemic response. And it's just such a pleasure to work with them to try and get things done for the benefit of our residents. Budget issues, as Representative Hunschofsky had mentioned on the state level, we've actually had something similar on the local level. Everybody was very nervous last year coming into this year as to what budgets were going to look like. And a funny thing happened along the way in the pandemic. Property values went crazy to the upside, which kind of helped out as we all prepare our budgets using the millage rates for next year. It's been a pretty interesting phenomenon to watch what's happening, especially in the Northwest Broward area, Coral Springs, Parkland. The housing prices and our tax rolls by implication have not really taken the hit that people thought they were going to take. So that actually helps us because the municipalities and the county has still the same, if not greater level of services that need to be provided during these tough times. So it's good to see that the dollars, will be there to help do that. On a business type level, our airport, FLL, is rebounding very quickly and very nicely. On the weekends, it's difficult to find parking spaces. People are, getting away and using the airport. We've actually continued to move forward with our capital plans. That means improving the terminal system, building out new terminals. The growth for South Florida is really pretty much now becoming a national story, and our airport is a big part of that growth with new flights coming in and new carriers coming in. So obviously we'll need more room. The parking lots, like I said, are full on the weekends. We have the valet parking has not opened yet, but it's in the process of being open, and that should provide some level of relief. But the airport, like every other business, is having a tough time rolling out some of the way we used to do things in the past, and also, with employee retention and finding employees and the like. We'll vote today at today's county commission meeting to move forward with the hotel at the convention center site, which is going to provide tons of jobs for the community. It's going to move us from a Class 3 convention site to a Class 2 convention site, which will put us, more in competition with Miami, their conventions. Class 1, by example, is like Las Vegas and Orlando, and then we're like the next step down. Class 2 right now, we're Class 3. So the convention center project is a big economic driver for the Broward County area. Our seaport, we've always had a 3-tiered approach which was cargo, petroleum products, and cruising. The cruising is starting to come back. We're working on the plans to make that happen. Petroleum and cargo has still been busy. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I will say we will vote today to Disney Cruises will move from Miami to Port Everglades, and it will roll out over the next couple of years, but we will be the South Florida home port for Disney Cruises, which is a tremendous get for Port Everglades. We've partnered with Nova Southeastern University to build an innovation academy. Broward County and Nova will roll that out. It was built by the private sector through Nova Southeastern. We were just one of the partners. So the good news is within a year, it's pretty much done. This will be finished within the next 2 or 3 months. It's an innovation incubation hub, which will provide jobs, allow businesses to start up, and continue to push business development in South Florida. I know your Coral Springs economic development team. I see some of them on this call. They're phenomenal. I love personally working with them. They get it. And they're doing, what needs to be done in Northwest Broward to keep businesses in our community as far as retention and the local small businesses. A lot of people don't realize right out in Northwest Broward, right in our area, we have cruise planners, we, First Data, we have major companies working right out of our area, and it's important to see them grow and flourish. I'll close with the negative side of our increased property values. Obviously, we have a housing crisis with affordability. We're looking at that through Broward County and working with the cities to see how we can help. And the penny sales tax projects keep rolling out to improve transportation throughout Broward County, as our voters have voted on. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and I'm happy to take questions until they drag me out of here for our commission meeting.
Well, great job, Vice Mayor. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. We do have some time for some Q&A. So I'll share with you all the first question we've got. Can you tell us about any issues from the recent session that impact our local business community? Who would like to take that? Senator Book, you want to give that a shot?
You know what? One of those bills is it was a bill about home businesses, and that came from the House. So I don't know if Representative Daley or Representative Hunschofsky want to take that. It was a really tough, COVID liability, good for the business community. But I don't know if either one of you want to take that.
Christine is looking for Dan's leadership on this one, I think. Christine, you want to take it?
Yeah, I'm happy to take it. Home-based businesses, it was very interesting. This was preempting local government from having any kind of say in home-based businesses, which, it was interesting because the arguments made by several representatives on the floor, which I brought to everyone's attention, was that they have home-based businesses and it's working great. Basically saying you could have a home-based business wherever you could have, wherever there was a home. It was another preemption. There was a lot of preemption. While I understand that some things need to be regulated on the state level, I do believe that local government knows their community best. As you can see, the involvement here. I'm sure Mayor Brook, you hear from plenty of people in the community on various issues, and that helps guide your decision making of what is best for the city of Coral Springs, and that's how it should be. One bill that I did mention earlier was that Bill 50, Senate Bill 50, that levels the playing field with the online internet sales tax. A lot of people were talking about that, but local businesses, that especially specialty businesses, they would have to charge they would charge sales tax to their consumers, and then somebody could go on, for example, Wayfair and buy a beautiful couch or whatever, and the onus would be on the purchaser to pay that sales tax. So, and that's going to help the small businesses. It's going to help them with their commercial real estate sales tax, which the state of Florida, I believe, is the only state that charges that. And we were trying to be very mindful of balancing the needs of not only our residents with unemployment and all of that, but also to make sure that our small businesses that are the economic drivers in our communities, that they also are protected, not just the big businesses, but very much so those local businesses. I mean, I know the ones we go to as a family, we actually know the owners. They live in our community, they're part of our community. So that was important to us to have some equity on that level.
Great. Thank you very much, Representative Hunschofsky. Representative Daley, anything to add?
I'm going to echo what my esteemed colleague, Rep. Hunschofsky did. And,
great. So, we have a lot of businesses here complaining they don't have enough help, and part of it, they believe, is the unemployment benefits that hasn't motivated people to come out and work. Any thoughts about that? What do we expect down the pike on that lane?
They're going to be ending the end of this month, according to the governor. They have ended. And so for people who believe that that's the issue, they will no longer be here. But I think you also have challenges. There's data showing that when everything shut down, there are certain industries where people actually went and took advantage of workforce retraining to be able to go into different areas. I think some of the service industries are especially hard hit. that people used, like I said, the workforce programs that are out there in order to retrain and go into different industries. So I think there will continue to be challenges ahead. And I think, like was mentioned earlier, by Vice Mayor Udine, the housing affordability is also going to have an impact in all of this.
Gotcha. Thank you. So our next question is, what do you see as the challenges that face home rule as a result of this session? And what do you think we can expect in the future?
Senator Book, I don't know if you want to, I'm happy to
Go
jump in.
right ahead.
Okay, so, look, and Mayor, I think you know this better than most, unfortunately, in one way, shape, or form or another, home rule is on the chopping block in Tallahassee every year, right? It's almost, it's kind of death by a thousand cuts. They come for whether it's bad preemptions, existing preemptions on reasonable gun reform, whether it's preemptions on home-based businesses, whether it's, on vacation rentals. I mean, folks, I'll tell you, not that this process is supposed to necessarily be fun, but the most fun that I have had the last 2 sessions has been helping kill the vacation rental bill. Up the votes to kill that bill. And if you're not familiar, that would basically say, hey, the state of Florida is going to preempt, and there's already a limited preemption on the issue of vacation rentals, where they can be, how they can operate, all that other stuff. This would be pretty much an expansion of that preemption. And that's bad for a couple of reasons. And I understand that the realtors and the Florida realtors are very supportive of it. And I have gone right to them with it and given that argument, because I don't buy their argument any day of the week. Because here's my situation, right? When I bought in a single family neighborhood in Coral Springs, I didn't buy next to a party house. I didn't buy next to somebody who rents out their house on a weekly basis and causes problems for me and my family. I have to get up every morning and take the kids to school and get to work and do this and do that and the other. I can't afford to be up every single night of the week because somebody decided they want to make additional income by renting out their party house next to mine. And that's a decision that local governments should be able to make. If Coral Springs wants to put restrictions on the use and the frequency of vacation rentals, they should be able to do so. If parts of Hollywood or Fort Lauderdale right by the beach want to have an entire zone just for vacation rentals, that should be their local decision. So I give you that one example because it's one that comes up every single year. But, Mayor, look, the preemptions come fast and heavy every single year. And some of them, sometimes make it through. And I won't delve too far into it, but I got hit for one the other day. Folks, I'm a defender of home rule. That's actually an award by the Florida League of Cities. It's their highest award they give to legislators. They gave it to me and Senator Pizzo last year. I'm with the League of Cities 99.9% of the time, but every once in a while, they're wrong. And there needs to be a little bit of course correction. And that was the impact fee bill. And so for any of you who follow Coral Springs Talk, there was a pretty one-sided article that hit me pretty hard the other day. I won't delve into it. I'll say this. Me and the writer spoke, being the author, spoke for about an hour. And somehow I garnered only one sentence in that story. So just keep in mind, look, it's not everything. Not everything's a conflict of interest. Just because somebody works for a development company, it doesn't mean that I necessarily do the bidding for that development company. It means there's good policy, or there may be good policy. Certain cities, we all talk about affordable housing being a crisis in Florida, and how it's the housing market pushes so many out from actually achieving that goal of home ownership. Well, let's examine the actual reasons. And this impact fee bill actually was, when it was first filed, was pretty egregious. They had a 3% cap on impact fees. And what that means, and I won't again get too far into the weeds, but what that means is a local government has the ability to charge a developer impact fees. So to mitigate that development, right? So to pay for things like additional roadways and roadway improvements, police, fire, parks, schools, right? But you had cities, and there are admittedly none in our area, but you had cities who were using those dollars to basically plug a budget hole, right? Or spending it on public art, or spending it on all of these other things that they weren't designed to be spent on, and not mitigating the actual impact from the development. You had other cities like the city of Punta Gorda, who actually looked to raise their impact fees by 300% in a single year. You want to talk about affordable housing? That is the quickest way to increase the cost of housing, because that developer who's in year 2 of a 3 or 4 year approval process to start their development has budgeted for X amount. Then that city comes in and tries to up that impact fee by 300%. that cost, as you all know, gets passed on. That gets passed on to the purchaser. What does that do? That increases the cost of housing. So all this bill does, it doesn't restrict impact fees. It doesn't say you can't have them. It just provides predictability. It says, hey, City of Coral Springs, you can raise your impact fee, but you can only raise it this amount per year, right? If there's an extenuating circumstance, there's an emergency, there's actually a relief valve as well that allows that city commission with a supermajority vote to go ahead and increase that impact fee over what the law provides and allows. So, you know, I got hit pretty squarely over that, but when you really understand that issue, and I'm happy to talk offline with anybody because I've taken too much time on this issue, but when you really kind of wrap your head around that issue, it's not egregious. It's not like every other preemption that they push. It was actually very reasonable, and it got more reasonable because folks like me and other Democrats were willing to work with the other side and say, hey, how can we make this bill better? So much so that, you know, Senator Brook and I both voted for it. At the end of the day, if it's good policy, it's good policy. And I'll leave that. If anybody wants to touch specifically on that bill with me, you guys have my number, and I'm gonna put it in the chat here in a minute.
You know,
And if I could just jump in really quickly, because
Sure.
I was actually one of the people that voted against it. And this is where, you know, good people who all want to come to good policy can just have a different way of getting there. But I came with my mayoral experience and my city commission experience in the city of Parkland. And sometimes we have to institute a new impact fee because now our library is getting overgrown. And because we've had explosive growth in this area, we have a challenge of developers paying for the impact of that development. And this bill unfortunately limits cities from only raising the impact fees every 4 years. And the problem with that in a high growth area is I don't want myself and the current residents to be then burdened with the cost of development. And so Representative Daley is absolutely correct. He did a wonderful job in helping to make the bill better. But again, I went along with development should pay for itself, and those who are already living in a community shouldn't be burdened with the impact of development.
Thank you very much, both representatives. I also want to acknowledge that City Manager of Coconut Creek is on this call. Karen Brooks, welcome, and thank you for your leadership.
Oh, thank you very
Vice
much.
Mayor Udine. Great to see you, Karen. Vice Mayor Udine, next question is for you. What issues do you see in our local community that are newly emerging and or ongoing? And how do you think the legislature should address those issues?
Well, the one ongoing one that we continue to have is housing affordability. And I think that's the backbone of a lot of, you know, what we keep seeing as far as getting employees, getting people that are able to live here and work here. And I don't even really like the term, you know, when we talk about affordable housing, sometimes it has such a bad connotation. That's really, I mean, every person that I speak to, almost along every income level, even if they're, you know, a 2-job family, a husband and wife both have, you know, they're both working, they still have issues with housing affordability. And I think that that's something that we need to look at as far as supply and demand of housing units. And when we're 100,000 plus units short of satisfying the demand in Broward County, we're going to have a problem. The law of supply and demand does not wait for the legislature in Tallahassee. They do not wait for the county commission in Broward, and they even don't wait for the city commission in Coral Springs. The law of supply and demand usually outranks all of us. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund was supposed to be a trust fund out of Tallahassee. The realtors supported it back in the day when it was started. And the reason that they supported it is because it was supposed to be a trust fund simply for affordable housing. You know, year after year, some of our friends on the other side of the aisle continue to raid that budget fund to use it for other projects. And it's put us behind the 8 ball on that issue. I think we'll also have issues with resiliency. As we're building new buildings in Broward County, we're taking into account, you know, the effects of what's happening in our community. And to me, this doesn't even need to be a political issue. This is just a look out with your eyes issue. I mean, you go in certain areas of the community and it's flooded out, after just moderate rainstorms nowadays. And we can see that there's something happening with the water table and there's different things that are happening. And we better be prepared for that as a community. Or if you want to talk about insurance rates for housing, if you want to talk about mortgage rates, we miss on that and we don't do the right thing. And you start seeing more and more flooding. I think you're going to see way bigger issues that we're going to have to get. And hopefully we can try and do more of them on the front or mediums on the front side rather than on the rear side of this, so that we can stay ahead of the curve. And then one thing that I always hear, it's boring, but it's true, is traffic and transportation. Now we've got a little relief over the last year and a half because of the pandemic. There didn't seem to be as many people on the roads, but that's starting to come back now. And we need to make sure that that we're doing all that we can. And then, and I'm kind of preaching to the choir to people on this call, then it all becomes intertwined together. Like, I'll take Coral Springs, for example. I love the new project they're doing on University and Sample. I love what that's going to look like. I think it's going to be cool for the community. I think it provides much needed housing in there. Whether you call it market rate, affordable, or whatever you call the housing, it's more units for more people. So somebody that lives in Parkland that wants to downsize to a 2-bedroom townhouse condo type of unit, they're going to have it right there, right in their community. But then on the other side, you'll hear from people who say, well, what about all the traffic that it's going to do and all this and all that? So they're competing balances that we look at all the time. And I think we're going to have to continue doing that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So our next question is, what do you feel the strategy should be as we prepare for the 2021 legislative session to address our additional concerns regarding local business issues and school safety? Senator Book, you want to give it a shot?
Sure, I think that's a great question. I think that it's communication, constant and often. Now that we're coming out of a Zoom world, but with Zoom capabilities, any means to sit down with your local elected officials. I know that Representative Hunschofsky, Representative Daley, Vice Mayor Udine, and others have office hours. We take calls. People are in our offices all the time. I think it's starting that conversation and having some of those conversations early so that we can prepare. I think also sometimes the best offense is good defense, and knowing and hearing and being prepared is the most important thing we can do going into a legislative session. And I think that, so those are some of the things that I always try to practice, and making sure that we have all of the tools at our disposal and positive policy for businesses to make sure that they can continue to do the things that they're doing. And working those bills early. I believe in maturing those bills early. So filing them early, working them on the other side. Oftentimes I like to be, through my second committee of reference before committee weeks are over. And to do that, a lot of times you have to start really early. So I know that some people are taking off for the summer, which is super fun, but making sure that you have all of that stuff done beforehand. We can submit bills into drafting now. I think that that's a really important thing to do.
Great. And I think along those lines, Senator Book, that part of doing your homework is really hearing from your constituents. And along those lines, I'm going to invite all of the business leaders to get in touch with all of our representatives and the senator here to help them do their homework and let them know what issues are important to you. Representative Hunschofsky, anything to add to that?
Yes, what I would say is, if I could just quickly go back regarding the affordable housing, I wanted to let everybody know the governor did veto the sweep this year. And then additionally, I want to thank the realtors so much because their advocacy on this issue was incredible. And they are also backing a proposal, a ballot initiative that so that the housing trust fund can never be swept. I don't know in any business where we designate money for a particular purpose and then we decide to use it for general stuff. It's not a good business practice. I just wanted to thank the realtors for that. I really encourage people to reach out, like Senator Book was saying early, before the committee process. I am working all summer. I am talking to people about legislation coming up. But in addition to having positive legislation, I like to hear the personal stories about why how this legislation will change your business, how it will change your home and your life. And I think it's very powerful when introducing legislation and advocating for legislation when we can attach it to some real life, real world stories. It's a very effective way, as opposed to when we get involved in the minutia of, well, this line says and that line says. Our job, I think, as elected officials is to lift up those local voices and make sure that every person's voice and their experience is heard up in Tallahassee. So that's what I would say with that.
All right, thank you. Representative Daley?
Thank you, Mayor. And, I would echo a lot of what both my colleagues just said. I think it's really incumbent on folks to, come to us and raise issues. And, I can tell you, at least in the case of two of my bills, this last legislative session, they were a result of somebody reaching out and saying, hey, did you know this? And as a matter of fact, I didn't, right? I mean, we're not, just because we're in the legislature doesn't make us experts in every single issue that impacts this state. There are the hot button ones that I think everybody kind of cues in on, but there are plenty of things that may require legislative changes that may not even be on our radar, right? So now that's not to say that every single idea that somebody brings us is the greatest legislative, policy idea on the planet, and we're going to run with it. In the case of myself and Rep. Hunschofsky, we have to be pretty selective. We've got 7. It used to be 6. They gave us an additional. There are 7 bill slots. We have 7 bill slots. That's it. We have legislation or proposed legislation every year, right? So you've really got to kind of tailor what you're going to work on, how you're going to work on it, what the chances are for passage. If it's just a messaging bill, if it's one that you're going to file and it's never going to move, but it's going to put that message on people's radar. It's going to talk about an issue that maybe folks in Tallahassee don't want to talk about. Or if it's genuine, policy that you think can pass the legislature. The legislative process is not easy. It is designed to candidly kill policy ideas. It is designed to be hard. It is designed to be a work in progress. It's designed to be a give and take and a negotiation. And that's a bipartisan negotiation and otherwise. And that's why you can see, myself or Rep. Hunschofsky or others, we're willing to work with our folks on the other side of the aisle. Senator Brook is another example to get good policy or make better policy possible and get it through the process. So one, I would echo their comments, reach out, let us know what's going on. Because sometimes, you may think it's the biggest issue in the world, but it may not be on our or anyone else's radar for that matter. And the other thing that I would say is, look, I do think you're going to see, and I know, Mayor, you mentioned specifically school safety and things like that. I'm looking forward to working with Senator Brook and Representative Hunschofsky and folks like Chairman Chris Latvala, who's a Republican from up north, and yet he has been a real champion since February 14th on school safety issues. He's part of the reason that we were able to get a school safety package of some form because of amendment processes and everything else through the process. The Senate didn't have a independent school safety bill this last session, and we kind of hijacked, with the help of Senator Brook, Senator Harrell's bill, and added a bunch of policy proposals that really to a broader school safety bill. And my understanding is there will be an appetite for that this next legislative session. And I think there should be, right? Whether it's school safety or public safety in general, our work is never done, right? There are always things that we can be working on and should be working on in that respect. And so I'm looking forward to that. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for having us.
Great. We do have time for one more question before I hand it back over to our chair. And that question will be about HB 7035, School Safety Mental Health Crisis Training. That was added to Senate Bill 590. Can you give us a little bit more about the depth and the breadth of this type of crisis training and how it will likely save lives? Who'd like to take that?
I'd like to take that if that's okay. There were 2 things that I think were incredibly important in that school safety bill. One is the crisis training for all school safety officers, so that if they see a child who's in crisis, that they know how to handle that and who to refer them to. And the next thing is that the school systems can contract with the managing entities for behavioral health services. Why is that important? While our school system makes a best effort to provide behavioral health services, our managing entities are experts in that area. This is all they do. That is part of their job from the state of Florida. So that's really important. So the school safety bill, that's what this was. And as Mayor Brook mentioned, it got amended into another Senate bill. That senator was Senator Gail Harrell. And what happened is the bill passed on the House floor. Chip LaMarca was the sponsor of the bill. And then some of us worked with Senator Harrell to make sure, because there was no companion bill in the Senate, to make sure that it got amended into Senator Harrell's bill. And I think it's really important. We want to make sure that students who have issues with mental health are in crisis, that they're getting the help they need, so it doesn't bubble up into a situation that can be harmful to the rest of the student population and the teachers. And it's important that all the school safety officers are trained in this area so that they know the difference between somebody, just acting up or somebody who's really in crisis and needs those wraparound services and support to work through that crisis.
Really great, Representative. Anything you'd like to add, Senator Book, to that?
No, again, I think it's all so important, but, to both representatives' hard work, I think it shows no pride in authorship when you are able to put something that is so near and dear to our hearts, being from this community. You want to take something home, you want to bring something back, particularly to this area where we have had to handle some of the tragedies that have occurred here. But they did not tire. They worked really ceaselessly to make sure that it happened, and put the egos aside just to make sure that children and students, teachers, and our community is safer. And so I think that that is just a true testament to them and to the process. While we started talking about how terrible session was and how there's so much of this like bipartisan ugliness, which it does exist, we are able to lay down arms and work together when it comes to the betterment of our community. And I think that that is just something that just speaks to how hard how hard we work to try to make sure that people are being kept safe.
Well, we want to thank Representative Daley. Did you want to add something?
No, sir. I'm good.
Great. Well, we really appreciate the panel for being here. Sorry, Mickey, I didn't have a chance to ask you another question. You guys are doing a great job, and you're not only exercising diligence, but you've had to exercise a lot of patience during this session and during COVID. So I just want to, say thank you from all of us for the patience that you've also been able to exercise and really focus on the end goal, because obviously you really are making a huge difference for our community that did have this tragedy occur, in our midst. I want to let everybody know, and I'll put it in the chat, 800-227-TALK is a suicide prevention hotline, 800-227-TALK. And now I want to hand it back over to our chair. I'll be having a 9 o'clock hearing, so I've got to move off of this. Andrea Jacobs, thank you for your leadership, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for everything that you've done for our community. And thank you to all of our panelists for your time and input today. This was fabulous information for all of us. I'd also like to thank our presenting sponsor, Baptist Health. Kate Goldman, would you like to say a couple of closing words for us?
I just wanted to thank everybody for their time this morning and the informative information that we've been the recipient of, and grateful for all the work of our civil servants and those who are in public service, because we know it many times it can be a thankless job. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for imparting your information to us. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thanks, Kate. I'd also like to thank our gold sponsors, FPL and Memorial Healthcare Systems. And we appreciate all of your support to the chamber.